This is the book that Galen actually introduced me to. It's called Blessed Are the Consumers, Climate Change and the Practice of Restraint. Sally McFaig, she's a phenomenal theologian and writer, and so this is where this whole kenosis, the act of self-emptying topic comes from today. And this is the book we've been reflecting on for Lent. It's kenosis is a word that I don't... It's a Greek word that I don't think many people use very often, so I did a little bit of research on where Sally had found this, but it is actually the Catholic fathers, Cappadocian fathers of the 4th century. They looked at God, who they believed was love, and they identified theologically that God was ultimately self-emptying. The Son empties into the Spirit, and the Spirit empties into God the Father. Incarnation flows from kenosis. So kenosis is the self-emptying image of God. So one of my favorite writers, Richard Rohr, he speaks about in the DNA of God that there's this sense of sacrifice and self-emptying. So in fact that he speaks about the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago as being the first example of God self-giving God's self to the world. 2,000 years ago then, God reveals the human face of who God is in Jesus. And in Jesus, we learn about humility, servanthood, and surrender. Cynthia, her name is Bogault, writes, this is pretty cool, Jesus had only one operational mode. In whatever life circumstances, Jesus always responded with the same motion of self-emptying. Or as she says, to put it another way, the same motion of descent, going lower, taking the lower place, not the higher place. And Cynthia kind of contrasts this with our image of God often reaching up to God in the heavens and up high, as God actually, through Jesus, shows us a mode of humility. So that's kind of an intro to Sally McFaig's Blessed Are the Consumers. And what I really hear her trying to say is that not only are we too invested in always consuming because that's what the marketers tell us we need to do, but she even uses the example of the internet and how in this day and age it's, I don't like to really criticize totally the Facebook world because I've been on Facebook, but sometimes Sally tries to point out just this whole focus of self, me, right? And but I want to throw out today that there's a couple examples that I want to share with you from everyday life. But before I show you these examples, I want to say a few words to you as a congregation. This is our annual meeting Sunday. And I think a lot of self-emptying happens here every day of the week. And I walk into this place, and whether it's contact place, and I see lovely people talking to each other, and they're welcoming anybody who is looking for a handout in support. And sometimes on a Monday or Friday, that's the first person you meet. Then, if you're lucky enough, you get to meet Sharon in the office, and she's like this ambassador of, hi, welcome to Trinity. And if you find your way up the stairway, you'll find that there's actually a place where Heather doesn't hide out, but Heather is hard at work with the bookkeeping. And she's making sure there's letters sent out thanking people for their gracious gifts of donations. One thing you may not know is that Heather, these slides on Sunday, she puts up with someone like me who's sometimes so scattered, it's like Friday at 4 o'clock and she works till 4, giving her some ideas for slides, and she's figuring that out for me. And then, in the past years, we've had our lovely Lenny here that's been helping us take care of the place. And now that we're delighted Lenny's had a sense of call to a new beginning, we have this young guy named Drew. I'm like going, it's really cool to have somebody like 20-something here in the church. Nothing against anybody else who works here. Drew's just, he's hard at it, and he's laid back. He's really cool to talk to. We're going out for breakfast on Tuesday just to get to know Drew a little bit better, kind of hear what he does beyond work. And then, if you're around here at Trinity long enough, you're going to hear this lovely singer, Andrea, and all the people that come through here that sing with her. And the thing about Andrea is no matter what kind of day, even if she has a day where it goes a little bit off sideways, let's call it, she's still laughing and she's still making the best of it. And, Galen's away right now, but I'm so blessed to work here, is what I'm trying to tell you. And it's consistent throughout the week, though, whether it's the Sunshine Club or it's the Gwen's Pickleball group or the people who are knitting, David's group on Thursdays, praying and studying the Bible together. It's just continuous. So I want to say to you, thank you for your self-emptying that happens every day of this ministry here. That's why it truly is 7 days a week. Now, I'm going to show you a slide of somebody that we lost this week. And so Billy Graham. Billy Graham and I haven't necessarily always seen eye to eye on theology, but when I was a young guy, he was packing stadiums, and I was marveled just at how he could pack stadiums, and the Billy Graham Crusades were something. I'm not sure if anybody has ever been to one. Is Arslan here today? I'm not sure if Arslan probably has been to one, but Billy Graham really brought on quite a movement. And when he died at 99 this week, so he had a great life. And, this is what I want to say about Billy. He was kind of one of a kind in a sense that I think in his day, he wasn't overly political. He was about, understand that God loves you. Jesus is here to save you. Some people criticized him, said, Billy, you're too simple in your message, but ultimately, millions of people all over this world, probably every country at some level, heard his message of grace and love. And many people, and I've heard it in my ministry, maybe went to a crusade and felt in a sense of being saved and going forward. And so I just want to really thank God today for Billy, who he really poured himself out. And I'm glad you put this picture of Billy preaching here. As he got older, though, this is what I want to offer to you about Billy Graham. He said, all my life I've been taught how to die. In the message, as we heard Diane read today, as Jesus points. But Billy says, no one ever taught me how to grow old. And that was beautiful. And then his daughter, Anne Graham Lotz, said, well, Daddy, you're now teaching all of us the lesson of age. Anne says this, when you get older, secondary things like politics begin to fall away, and the primary things become primary again. And for Daddy, the primary thing is this, as Jesus said, try to love God totally, love your neighbors as yourself. And that's really the last testament she says of her father, Billy Graham. As you probably know, he has advised, supported all the presidents, about 10 of them. But in this day and age, in his old age, he's not weighed in on stem cell research. He's not tried to give political counsel to the right or the left. In fact, Graham, when he was 87 years of age, said, America has gone too far from the right or the left. And the core message of the gospel of God's love for all people needs to take priority. And he said in 87, the older I get, the more important the eternal becomes for me. I'm more focused on heavenly things than on the politics of today, he says. This is an unwavering man of faith. In his older age, he also says this. There are many things that I don't understand, he says. He does not believe that Christians need to take every verse of the Bible literally. That might surprise some people. Sincere Christians, he says, can disagree about the details of Scripture and theology. Absolutely. However, it's been noted, quite honestly, that Billy's son, Graham, who's started the Samaritan's Purse, has taken a very different, I would say, a different path in terms of his father, and that's probably rightly so. Every child needs to carve out their own path. But his son, Graham, who has taken on the leadership of Billy Graham, has been far, far more politically inclined, to my disappointment, siding consistently with the right-wing perspectives, being known to be very critical of whether it's same-sex marriage or critical, sadly, of the Muslim faith. And, often if you research his son, you come up with phrases that his son uses, like evil and wicked, and particularly connected to Islam. Well, sadly, for Billy Graham, his father, those aren't words that he ever used as an evangelist. And so the interviewer of Billy Graham got really deep and asked him about his son. And I thought this was a very truthful moment. Because he said to Billy, "You've always been a man of a unifying theme of humility." And when asked Billy about the good news for Jews and Muslims and Buddhists and Hindus and secular people, Billy Graham says, well, that's really to be entrusted to the Lord, to God and God's self. In other words, Billy went on to say, I have many Muslim friends, I have Hindu friends, I have Buddhist friends. I'm not here to judge them. And so, my friends, as I wanted to honor a very well-known evangelist in our time, we discover what's true about all families and all life, really, is that sometimes our child takes a little different path than us. Our child, though his son is much younger, even a sister said, she acknowledged her brother takes a different view than she even does, but she's hoping that her brother in time, like her father, will discover the grace of God. Billy ends it by saying in his interview that what he's come to really appreciate in the scriptures are Paul's words, "Now I see dimly, but one day we shall see face to face." And I think that's the ultimate self-emptying of, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to love all people first. Finally, the conclusion of today's self-emptying is somebody I've never heard of before until this is where the internet is an internet that we know can be very troubling and concerning, but we find also in social media that we learn about the stories of everyday people like Becca, Riverview, New Brunswick, a New Brunswicker who has sadly died after facing very courageously terminal cancer. This New Brunswick teenager took her prognosis of terminal cancer, and she's inspired acts of kindness across not just Canada, but, my friends, the globe. Rebecca Schofield, she died at age 18, her family has stated last Sunday. If the love of a community actually had the medical power to cure childhood cancer, the family says, we believe Becca would have lived forever. Listen to that. If the love of a community actually had the medical power to cure childhood cancer, we believe Becca would live forever. While that wasn't possible, we believe the countless acts of kindness Becca and her family have received from a community of caring people, literally around the globe, has at least helped soothe all our souls. Even in the morning of her death, Becca's supporters say they will continue to carry out her final request, sharing acts of kindness on social media because #Becca told me to. You gave Becca strength and courage throughout her journey. You gave her the profound blessing of knowing in her too short of life that she did make a difference. You gave her hope that all the good and the bad of the past 3 years has a meaning, even at times when that was hard to see, is what the family has said. Her legacy is not all the good that came our way. It's the thousands of acts of kindness that grew exponentially outward from our home in Riverview, New Brunswick, spreading across the globe. I want to give you an example of this. So I saw a doctor from Colorado say, #Becca told me to, inspired me to buy fruit for all my neighbors, and I went and did it. Somebody else said, #Becca inspired me to go and buy a Starbucks coffee for a friend that inspired another friend to go buy duct tape at Walmart for his other buddy. So across the land, America, the world, kindness and positivity. I end the message with this. Becca says, kindness and positivity, they're a choice, and it's not a choice you make once. That's what I call self-emptying. That's kenosis. Blessed be you, Becca, and blessed be you, Billy, and to all of you who are self-emptying souls. Thanks be to God.